Hello my lovely, how are you? Welcome to the channel this week. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm out for a wee wander this morning. I want to go foraging, but before I do, I thought I'd bring you with me to check on the bees. So should we go and see if they're flying? It might be a bit cold, but we'll see what they're doing anyway. So this tree here, I'm having to be super quiet because I'm still by the hives. This one here is what I came to go foraging on. It's the blackthorn tree, and this time of year it has fruits called sloes. Let me show you. So the sloes look like blueberries. I would say large looking blueberries hanging off this tree. What I'm trying to show you is the armour plating that covers the blackthorn. They've got these really long spines on them that can be quite sharp, and if they break off under your skin you can end up getting quite a nasty infection. So it's important to be really careful when you're picking sloes. The sloes are a member of the plum family, so that, let me think and get this right. Sloes are, the Latin name is Prunus spinosa, I think. Someone correct me if I've got that wrong. But they're super duper sour, like really sour. Like pull your cheeks in kind of sour. And you wouldn't want to eat one. Let's just say that on its own. But I have a use for these. So I've just taken a wander down the back to get some more. I got a load off of that tree by the bees. But one thing that is really important not to do when you're out foraging is to completely strip an area bare. You need to be mindful that there are animals and the birds who rely on it for a food source. So we don't want to be clearing an area out and leaving them with nothing. We also, you need that fruit that maybe isn't eaten to full. You want that to full so that the seeds can then possibly germinate. Now the blackthorn has been used in the countryside for hedging. It's a great way to keep cattle in because of those really long thorns that I showed you. So there's a whole raft of plants that have been used for hedging throughout the UK, Ireland and Europe for centuries because of those spines that they have on them. So they make an excellent barrier for animals. And it's really, really quite cool to see them growing and just watching the plants change through the season. So I'm just showing you what they look like on the bush, and there you get a better view of those thorns. Yeah, they're not pleasant. Thankfully, I got away this time without any major scratches, and I don't have any infections, so I am a happy camper. So we're back at home now, and I had these sloes in the fridge, and it's actually a really good thing to do for them because ideally they should be picked after the first frost. Unfortunately for us, with the season getting that messed up, if we left it till the first frost, most of the berries would be gone, just eaten by the birds. Now I weighed these out and I've picked just over a kilo. So I'm going to use half of these now, and then I'm going to put the other half in the freezer, which is really good for mimicking the frost. So what I'm going to do is I am making Sloe gin, which is a favourite of David and mine. It's just one of those really lovely winter warmers and beautiful to have around Christmas time. So I'm weighing out some honey. I discovered that Sloe gin made with honey is absolutely divine. It was a rather happy accident. From a batch that I strained off last Christmas that was made the previous year. And I found it just made the smoothest, most decadent Sloe gin. So I'm getting a batch ready for either the middle of next year or next Christmas, because the longer you leave it, the better it will be. So I'm weighing out 175 grams of honey. Now, most recipes you see will call for 200 grams of sugar, but I am putting a little bit less honey in just because I don't want it to be too sweet. I can always back sweeten at the end of the process if I decide that it's not sweet enough. You can always add more, but you can't take it out. So I'm just being a little bit circumspect. When I make it with sugar, sometimes I only make it with 100 grams to start with, and then I sweeten it up at the end again, just because that's how I roll and how I like to do things. So now that we've got the honey all weighed out into the jar, I am going to put a little bit of the gin in there to loosen the honey up. This honey started to set, so it's not runny, and I need to loosen it up so that it will mix through the gin and with the sloes. It's not going to sit in one great big lump at the bottom, because that's just not going to do what we need it to do. So I'm giving it a good stir here, making sure that there's no big clumps, and the smell of the honey and the juniper from the gin is actually a really, really nice smell. It's quite a heady aroma. So even if you wanted to do like a honey gin liqueur, I think that would be really something quite special. I might actually give that a go. I only had the 1 litre bottle of gin in the house. Otherwise, I would have made this. But watch this space. There may be more incoming. So I'm going to put about half the sloes in here now. And some people, they say that you have to prick the skins and things like that, but the skins are so soft on these sloes because they're super duper ripe. I'm not going to worry about it. Even the act of shaking them in the jar is going to burst some of those skins and let the flavour out. And that's all part of the process of making Sloe gin. Now, because of the weight of the honey and the displacement from that, I had a smidge of gin left in the bottle, so not quite a litre, but I'm not going to worry about that. There'll be liquid coming out the sloes when I press it out at the end. So I'm just giving this a very, very good shake now to make sure that it all blends together really well. And you can see the colour from the honey has changed the colour of the gin. And as time goes on, the purple colour from the skins, from the sloes, is going to change the colour again. And it becomes this really rich, vibrant, opulent purple colour. So you can see that there. And what we need to do is give this a shake every day for the next few weeks and keep it in a cool, dark place. And ideally, we're going to want to keep this for a year. Some people keep it for 6 months. It's really important to put the date and what you've put in there. The one on the right hand side, you see, that is from last November. So this is just about ready to get strained and bottled up. And I'm really looking forward to trying it because it's the season for sloe gin. Now that we've got the sloe gin put away, I am going to get on and make some burger buns. So I'm doing this using the same recipe that I used for the bread a few weeks ago. I'm just dissolving a spoonful of honey into a cup of lukewarm water. So we're loving all things honey today. That's how we're going to sweeten things. And because it's a bit solidified, it's taking a little bit of extra stirring in, but that's okay. That's not a problem. We will work with that. And of course, you have to lick your fingers when you're using honey. Next, I'm putting in a rough tablespoon of instant yeast and just giving that a stir. And the reason for doing this is to help the yeast bloom and check that it's not out of date. Not that it is, but if you have packets of yeast that you're not quite sure how old they are or if they're going to work, you can use this method and you'll see that it starts to froth up, and it'll tell you whether it's going to be any good for baking or not. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out my flour. So that is 3 cups of bread flour. Now you can use plain flour, but I prefer to use the bread flour. The gluten just develops a lot better in baked goods. So it's a bread product, so I use bread flour for it. I really must refill this jar. It's looking a bit emptier now. I'm also going to add in about a teaspoon of sea salt. So these are sea salt flakes. Now I'm not measuring things too strictly. I kind of know this recipe quite well now, so I can eyeball things a lot. The final thing that I'm going to put in there is a tablespoon of butter. And this just helps to make the dough really nice and soft. You could leave the butter out. You could use olive oil if you don't want to use butter. That's absolutely fine. You do what works best for you. I'm tempting to show you that the yeast is starting to bloom, failing miserably, but anyway, trust me, it's gone frothy. So we are going to add that into the bowl. And that is all the ingredients in the bowl there. So it's that quick to put together. Now I'm putting this in the stand mixer. It just makes my life a lot easier. And I can go away and do other things whilst this is kneading, and it saves my wrists. So if you have a stand mixer, or even you can do this in a bread maker, do what works best for you. So this is it's at the shaggy dough stage, and it's going to come together, and I leave it running for about 5 minutes just to do its thing. So it's finished kneading, and you can see it's a really nice elastic dough. So I'm going to weigh how much this is. I'm just tearing the bowl there so we don't have that. And then I can work out exactly how much bread roll needs to weigh. So this came to 800 grams, and that means that I'm going to divide my rolls into 8, so I want them to be 100 grams each. So it's you could just eyeball it if you want, but just to be precise and to make sure that the cooking time is even for all your rolls, weighing them out really does make a difference, I have to say. Now I have preheated my oven just to a gentle heat so it's warm, and the reason for me doing that is it means that these bread rolls are going to prove a lot quicker. So it means that dinner is going to be ready on time as opposed to an hour later, because I end up going on side quests quite often and dinner ends up running late. So this is just going to speed that process up for me. Now that I've weighed it out, I'm just going to flatten it and then fold it in on itself and give the dough a bit of tension by pulling it towards myself and shaping it. And I'm going to continue on and do this process until I have all 8 rolls. Now that I've got all 8, I'm just going to squash them out a bit and put them on a baking tray lined with parchment paper. Now this just helps to stop it stick. You could put a little bit of semolina underneath. Just do whatever works for you. Now I'm rolling these out a bit flatter, just because the burger buns, so they do tend to be flatter. I will hold my hand up and say I rolled them a little bit too flat. They weren't as puffy as maybe they could have been if I had left them. So that's a lesson learned for next time. But it's, we're all constantly learning, and having homemade burger buns is just really, really nice. They're fresh out the oven, so although they're not hot, they can be still warm when you cut into them, and it just homemade buns are a lot nicer. So these have been in the oven proving for about 25 minutes, and I've whacked the oven right up to 190 degrees Celsius, and that's for a fan oven. And I'm giving these just a brush with a bit of milk. This gives them that sort of shiny appearance. You could use an egg wash if you wanted to, but our chickens are molting at the minute, which means that they've gone off the lay, so they're not laying as much. So I'm having to be a bit more circumspect with the eggs. So milk glaze it is, but it's absolutely fine. And I'm just making sure that when we're just doing the tops, we're not getting down the bottom. So if you were using just a tray and not the baking parchment, you want to make sure that it doesn't run down, because it will make the buns stick to the tray. So if you make bread rolls, do you glaze them or do you just leave them plain? Do you glaze them with butter when they come out? What's your preference? I would really like to know how you do it. And just to give that burger bun aesthetic, if we want to call it, I'm going to sprinkle some sesame seeds on top. I have tried this with everything bagel seasoning, but the garlic tends to burn, and so it's not very nice. And some of my kids aren't that keen on the everything bagel seasoning, so I'm just keeping it plain this time with a bit of sesame seeds. So the buns were in the oven for 13 minutes, and funnily enough, the ones underneath actually got browner than the ones on top. And they were in at 190 degrees centigrade. So I maybe would next time swap these round halfway through, but they feel lovely. and let me tell you, they tasted pretty good too. And the texture was really nice and fluffy inside. So I'm just going to take these off the baking sheets and put them on a cooling rack, so that they can cool down enough for me to cut into them without them going that horrible, claggy, mushy texture on the inside, because that's just really not pleasant. They're a wee bit hot. I know I have asbestos hands, but these were very, very warm. So the buns have been cooling for about an hour now, and they're ready to cut into. Barbecue, I've run out of the gas canisters, so I have the burgers baking in the oven. It's a lot quicker and messier for me, quicker and less messy for me to cook them that way than on the stovetop. And it also means that they don't require as much babysitting, so it only takes, I don't know, 25-30 minutes for the burgers to cook in the oven. So it's just a nice, quick, easy dinner. And as you can see, these buns, they're cutting beautifully now, and they've not gone claggy at all in the middle. And they're just, you know that smell you get from freshly baked bread when you cut into it? Yeah, the kitchen is full of that smell, and it's just glorious. So we are going to go ahead and start assembling our burgers. And I've just put a bit of cheese on some of them. And this is our dinner for the evening. Nice, simple, nothing too fancy. And one that keeps almost everybody in the house happy, because we can't please everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on my adventures in and out of the kitchen this week. Don't forget to tune in every Thursday for a new video. Till next week, my lovelies, take care.